What if I told you that aging, it actually has less to do with the candles on your cake and a whole lot more to do with the laws of physics? Seriously, today we're going to dive into a totally new story of aging. It's not about time. It's about energy, disorder, and this incredible sense of balance.
I mean, we've all heard this story, right? It's that classic idea of aging as this slow, unavoidable surrender. Like it's a one-way street where your muscles get weaker, your memories get fuzzy, and that inner fire just kind of fizzles out.
But here's the thing. What if that's not the full story? Not even close. What if that whole narrative of just giving in is just plain wrong? And what if, and this is the big one, you actually have way more control over how you age than you've ever been led to believe? Okay, so to really get this new perspective, we first have to take a hard look at the old one. We've got to break down this idea that aging is just something that happens to us, this passive thing that we have absolutely no say in.
Yeah, this is that old story of fragility, the one where time is the big bad guy, and we're all just kind of strapped in for the ride with no control. But what if time isn't the real enemy here? What if the thing we're really up against is something else entirely?
All right, this is where we completely flip the script. So forget about time for a second. Let's talk about something way more fundamental, thermodynamics. Yeah, physics. Because it turns out aging isn't really about the number of years you've been alive. It's about this constant interplay, this dance between two incredibly powerful forces inside your body.
So, picture this. It's like a constant tug of war happening inside you. On one side of the rope, you've got entropy. That's the universe's natural, relentless pull towards disorder, decay, things breaking down. But on the other side, you've got potential energy. And that's your body's amazing, active power to fight back, to repair itself, and to renew. And really, the story of aging is just the story of this lifelong battle.
And just so we're crystal clear, this isn't some fuzzy philosophical idea. Entropy is a real thing. It's a measurable physical process. It's a slow, steady buildup of disorder in literally every single cell in your body.
And we can actually see it at work in three main areas. So you've got structural entropy. Think of tiny little errors in your DNA or proteins that don't fold quite right and start to, gum up the works. Then there's functional entropy. That's when your cellular power plants, the mitochondria, start to get a little less efficient, they start to sputter. And finally, there's informational entropy. This is like static on the line that messes up the clear signals between your cells. Things like your hormones get disrupted.
Okay, so if entropy is kind of the villain in this story, then potential energy is absolutely the hero. And you want to know the best part? This isn't some battery that just runs down over time. Nope, it's a living, breathing resource that we can actually build up. We can cultivate it to push back against that tide of disorder.
And this awesome energy comes in a bunch of different forms. There's the chemical energy we get from good, nutrient-dense food. There's the physical energy we generate by moving our bodies, mental energy for staying sharp and adaptable, but it goes even deeper than that. There's what we call voluntary energy, which is rooted in having a sense of meaning and discipline. And then there's restorative energy, the kind we get from deep sleep and recovery. These are basically our tools, our weapons in this fight against entropy.
So, okay, you've got these two big forces pushing and pulling. But how does this whole battle actually play out inside our bodies day to day? Well, it all comes down to this really delicate, lifelong balancing act.
Our bodies are always in motion, always changing. There's this constant cycle of breaking down old, worn-out parts, that's called catabolism, and then rebuilding with fresh new stuff. That's anabolism. It's kind of like a city that's always under construction, constantly demolishing old buildings and putting up shiny new ones, block by block.
Now, when we're young, this whole balancing act, it's pretty much effortless. It's called homeostasis. Think of it like having a brand new smart thermostat in your house that just handles everything automatically. But as we get older, an entropy starts to creep in a little more. Keeping that balance takes more conscious effort. That's called homeodynamics. The goal is exactly the same, stay in balance. But now we have to be the ones intentionally setting the temperature.
And this whole framework, this entire way of looking at our health through the lens of physics and our own choices, it actually has a name. It's called Lifestylopathy. It's a really powerful perspective that was developed by Dr. Jawad Alzeer. And what it does is it puts us right back in the driver's seat of our own health journey.
But wait, the story doesn't stop there. It gets even more interesting. Because beyond the big, obvious stuff, there are these hidden forces at play. These really subtle regulators that are quietly influencing this balance, and as a result, the very pace at which we age.
And three of the biggest players in this hidden world are: 1, our microbiome, that huge ecosystem living inside of us; 2, our mind, which, believe it or not, has its own form of entropy; and 3, our daily lifestyle rhythms, which are actually the tools we use to manage all of this.
So let's talk about the microbiome. Your gut is home to literally trillions of microorganisms. It's this incredibly complex world inside you, and it has a massive impact on your health. The thing is, as we get older, the diversity in that ecosystem can start to drop off, which can lead to an imbalance called dysbiosis. And this is not just about having an upset stomach. This imbalance can actually fuel chronic inflammation all over the body, and that inflammation is one of the key drivers of aging.
And like I said, it's not just our physical bodies that deal with entropy, our minds do too. Think about it. Psychological entropy can show up as becoming really rigid in your thinking, or losing that ability to adapt to new things. It can even feel like a slow draining away of your purpose and your joy. It is the mental side of disorder, and believe me, it is just as real as the physical side.
So all of this brings us to the million-dollar question, right? If entropy is this natural force, this constant pull towards disorder, what can we possibly do about it? How do we fight back? How do we regulate this thing?
And here it is. This is the game changer. Your daily lifestyle choices are the single most powerful tool you have. Period. Think of your lifestyle as the thermostat for entropy in your body. Every choice you make, big or small, turns that dial. You're the one setting the temperature, either cranking it up towards disorder or turning it down towards renewal.
So what are these dials on your personal thermostat? Well, they're the everyday things that are completely in your control. It's the simple power of taking a deep, conscious breath to calm your whole system down. It's the life-giving energy you get from good, wholesome food, the vitality that floods your body after you move, the incredible healing that happens when you get deep, restorative rest. It's taking care of your microbiome, and it's keeping your mind sharp and engaged with a sense of purpose. Every single one of these is a dial you can turn to fight entropy and build that potential energy.
You know, when you start to look at it like this, everything changes. Aging just stops being this story about loss, this passive thing where you just surrender to time. Instead, it becomes this active, creative process. It becomes the art of using the time we have to build our resilience, to grow our clarity, and to really find a deeper sense of meaning.
So, really the power is in your hands. This isn't about some fantasy of turning back the clock. It's about learning to master the climate inside of you. So the real question isn't how old you are, it's how you choose to live. With all that in mind, looking at all those dials on your thermostat, how are you going to set it today?